If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments. Alamance County is pleased to present the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting.
All right, good morning. If we could please come to order. This is the September 4th, 2018 meeting of the Alamance County Board of Commissioners. Before we get started, I just ask folks to remember that it's a 9 o'clock in the morning meeting and the City of Graham is issuing parking tickets. So you might want to keep your eye on your watch. I hate for anybody to get a parking ticket today because they were in here too long. So today, Commissioner Sutton has our invocation and will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Ma'am, thank you. This sort of just came on me over the night, really, over the yesterday afternoon. I was going to do a normal invocation, prayer, whatever, but in my job, I do driver's ed and I absolutely love it. And I constantly tell students, slow down or do this or do that, but I say, turn, 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 a lot. And every time I say that, I think of the song that the Byrds did back in the late 60s, and I have to explain to them the basics for that song, that it was based on some of the words of the Bible. And I kind of want to emphasize that this morning and read some of those points. Some of the words of that song are here. And it's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, 1 through 8. And it says, to everything there is a season. Well, wouldn't you know, go off my screen. That's embarrassing. Hold on a minute, let me get back. I'll have to cut through this thing. But it says, there's a time for peace, there's a time for war, there's a time for, I was a little surprised. He said it was there was a time for hate, and there's a time for love, and so forth. There's a season for everything, and I would just hope that we would know what those seasons are, explore those seasons, and try to find the purpose and how to execute on those purposes by using the seasons that are spoken of here in the Bible. And I'll go ahead and offer a prayer, if I may. If we can take a moment. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for another beautiful morning. Thank you for letting us enter into the new season of fall. It's been a long summer. Be with us as we do the people's business of this county. Help our leaders worldwide come to the solutions that we need to make this world a better place to live in. It's there. We just have to do it. Be with our military and bless every one of us. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next time I'll write it down.
Start to pull it up for you. I got it.
Technology never fails to disappoint when you're really looking for it. You might. Okay, next on our agenda are the public speakers. Just briefly, I will remind everybody that our public comment policy is available for the public to review on our website. Also, the rules of procedure that were adopted by the Alamance County Board of Commissioners that include a Section 7 on Article 6, Section 7 on decorum of the audience. And I won't belabor those points today, but just ask people to review those in advance of coming to the meetings to speak. Today we have 3 speakers who are signed up. The first is Seneca Rogers.
Hello, good morning, commissioners and fellow guests. Like she said, my name is Seneca Rogers. I've been a resident of Alamance County for 37 years now. That's my age. So I would like to just thank you for this time to speak about this proposed MVP natural gas pipeline. I stand here today, myself, along with my church, Arches Grove United Church of Christ, to stand in opposition of the proposed pipeline. I have been a member of Arches Grove now for 9 years, and the past 2 years as chairperson for our trustee board. When I first started hearing about this proposed pipeline coming through our area, it had me a little bit intrigued, like what's going on here, what's happening, how close is it going to actually come to our church. Our church has been in the Hopedale community area since November of 1872, and our current location since 1963. And from the generosity of a couple of families, the Blanchard family, the Gant family, the Warren family, we was able to have our land given to us by them. So that's just a little history of our church. When I went down to one of the meetings of MVP to see where the proposed pipeline would run in connection to our church, it will basically run right next to and through a graveyard that we have there. That has plenty of families. Like I said, our church has been there since 1872. A lot of those families that started then, their descendants are still there now. Some of their people who've passed in their family is actually buried out there in the graveyards. It's possibly some grave sites out there that we don't even know that's unmarked. But to think of an actual pipeline running right through there to dig up people's graves, to send those families back through that hurt, I couldn't understand it. Also, we have church events out at our church, revivals, family fun days, different type of events where we might have kids running around in the back side of our church, running around just on the front side of our church. And it's a danger of a pipeline to the fact of, what if this pipeline exploded while we're having our revival? What if this exploded while we're having our vacation Bible school? I mean, I wouldn't want to put a child in danger like that. Also, we're looking at expansion of our church. Maybe the expansion of a daycare, expansion of a resource building. Who knows, eventually maybe some type of gymnasium. But if this is running near our church, then that expansion can be hindered. It'll hinder on the fact of where we can build at, what our property value will actually be, what we can actually use our church for. Also, just on a personal note, through the fact that the proposed pipeline is ending somewhere behind Alamance Community College. My wife, who's worked at Alamance Community College now about 8 years, actually works there.
That means your time's out.
All right. Well, just one thing to leave y'all with is, I hope y'all end up signing a resolution. I know y'all don't have an actual full say-so, but to sign the resolution in opposition will show how your support is with the landowners and people like my church. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next is Patsy Madron.
Good morning. My name is Patsy Madron. My husband Steve and I own a farm at 2372 Basin Creek Road. MVP Southgate has proposed to split our farm right in the middle for the main pipeline route. We have also been advised that we're on the alternate route, along with our driveway to the farm being marked as an access road and staging area. We are opposed to this and ask that you, our commissioners, take a stand with us to fight this unnecessary pipeline. Our farm has been in our family 9 generations. In 1819, Thomas and Betty Madron left Elizabeth City, North Carolina on their way to Missouri to set up a homestead. They stopped in Alamance County for the winter, and when spring came, they decided to stay here in the northwestern part of Alamance County. In 1846, the Madrons purchased a property which is our current farm. Our family history is on this land, and to destroy it by an unnecessary pipeline is unacceptable to us. Our family matters. The Sissesapaha Indians lived and worked our land from 1400 to 1650. We find arrowheads and Native American artifacts as we live and work the land as well. I have confirmed this Native American history with Bill at the Alamance County Historical Museum. Our existing home site would be disrupted by having 125 feet of our septic tank lines destroyed, making our home site useless. Our well lines to the home site would be crushed by the heavy trucks, pipes, and equipment that MVP would be bringing in and out for staging. We have invested time and money in getting this site set up, and we also feel that the well water would be contaminated from the installation of this pipeline through use of chemicals and drilling through rock formations in 2 of our fields. 3 forest areas would be completely stripped of all the beautiful trees, and this is a lot of habitat for many wildlife species. The proposed route is right beside our pond dam and natural spring. This would disrupt our natural water resources for ourselves and the wildlife. The alternate route would be crossing the creek bordering our property. We love our land and take pride in all the previous generations that have farmed and lived here. We farm, fish, camp, ride trails, and gather here for family time on this land. The MVP pipeline would make this land useless for future farming and family enjoyment, along with significantly decreasing the value of our land. We would never feel safe on our property again. We have concerns for our community as well. The whole river, creeks, and streams would be affected, causing contamination through erosion, sedimentation, and possible leaks and explosions. Overall exposure to the gas emissions and fumes to the population close by could cause health issues. We are close to AO Elementary, Western Middle, Western High Schools, Altamaha Baptist, Westside Fellowship, and the Shalaford Natural Trail Systems. All of these areas are within a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile from our farm. Our land and community has Duke Energy power lines and the Cardinal gas pipeline and cathodic easement protections currently, and we feel that we have given our part for the public utilities. We don't feel that we should be expected to give what little we have left for yet another encroachment on our land for private gain. We need you, the commissioners, to stand with us in opposing the MVP Southgate pipeline to save our farmland and the surrounding community from the destruction this would cause for Alamance County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madron. And Brenda Hare.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Brenda Hare, and I live at 3849 Danley, Waterwheel Road, not far from Ms. Madron. The problem that Wesley and I see the most, and our fear, is this pipeline will be 100 to 150 feet from where our bed sits. We purchased this lot beside us for the future of our grandchildren, one who is critically ill and waiting for a kidney transplant. Our hopes for this lot was to be able to help if we needed to. Now that hope is destroyed and we will live in fear of explosion and having to pay taxes for land of no use anymore and no value to us, then I won't be able to help my future grandchildren and the grandchildren that we have now. Another problem is we were never shown any routes particular that were going to be taken until the FERC meeting. Now, the FERC meeting, an MVP representative, I wouldn't go over there where they were at. So he came over and talked to Wesley and I. And he was surprised that we had never been shown any routes. He had no idea of this plan. He was only brought here to help for more representation from Virginia. He was from South America, and he really felt that this was wrong to destroy land for the pipeline. He gave us his card and mailed us the first pictures that we had ever seen showing the proposed routes, and he made comments that he would not want that pipeline that close to his bed either. He seemed truly embarrassed that we had been treated unfairly from the very beginning when they hung this thing on our door. And I had no clue what it was. I threw it in the trash to start with. And I tried to give him a no pipeline button, but he said he'd be fired. So he worked for them to support his family, and that's what he told us. I work for them to support my family. But I do love the beautiful trees, streams, and lands that you have here in North Carolina. I think it's extremely urgent that the people that we voted for, with our confidence in you, and now it is time for you to put your confidence in us as Alamance County representatives. Please do not let happen to our families what happened to the Aaron Brockovich families that she represented. I don't know, some of y'all might not be old enough to know about Aaron Brockovich, but I think most of you are. And that was very sad. And I don't want to see 50 to 100 years from now, which I won't see it, but you will maybe, that this has happened to our streams and our waters because of this thing. I got to tell you one thing last, and that is Wesley and I, we fish a lot. And when we catch a big old mama bass, what do? We put it right back in the water. And you know why? Because I want my children to catch her children. So thank you for listening, and it is now time that we use our common sense, which God gave us, to vote against this pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hare. All right, that concludes our public speakers for today, so Commissioner comments. Mr.
Well,
Sutton?
yes, if I may, and I hope I don't embarrass him by telling him that he knew us or he knows us. But Seneca, stand up just a moment if you will. I haven't seen this young man since, it's been over 20 years, he says. My memory of him was back when he played with my children, and my children played with him, and lived near us, and played football in our backyard. I took kids often down to Clemson to see football games, and I always took somebody who'd never been to one. And this young man went with us, and we went into the athletic building and went down to Frank Howard's office. Frank had been to lunch. The field at Clemson's named after Frank Howard. He basically brought big-time football to Clemson. And he's in the Hall of Fame, and played for Alabama, and he was on the last national championship team that Wallace Wade got before he went to Duke. And but when we went in Frank's office, he was with, Seneca was with my son and Timmy and John. Well, we didn't call Seneca Seneca. His name was Scoot. And so Frank Howard really took to him, and I said, Frank, let the boys stand beside you and let me take a picture. It was film, really. I have film of this, and I'll get it to you. I got to find it, but I've got it, and I'll copy it. But Frank moved away from his desk and put some tobacco in a cup and slid his chair back, and he said, boys, and he put my youngest son on his lap like he was Santa Claus. And Timmy was behind him on this side, and he looked at Scoot and he said, he called you Scooter. And he said, Scooter, come here. And he reached around and had you come on around. You remember that? Do you remember that? But those were some great days, and to see you again after decades, it's made my day for sure, and longer. But good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, take care.
All right, anybody else?
I just had a question. How close is your church to the river there?
The river, you ride past Copeland and cross over the river, and then you get to Hopedale Baptist. As soon as you get up to like
So
the
you're
curve,
pretty
right
close
up
to
there,
the
we're
river
right there
then,
on the curve, yes.
aren't you?
Anybody else?
I'll wait till the agenda item.
Okay, Mr. Lashley?
No, I'm good.
All right. I'd just like to thank everybody, all the speakers for coming out. It's really helpful to have y'all here. I appreciate that. All right, next we have approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next we have the consent agenda. If everybody has had a chance to review the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent
Second.
agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next thing is a request for an excise tax refund. Is Suzanne Kennedy here? Could she be in the overflow room? Do we have people in the overflow room? If somebody would check. I am handling this item on the agenda. So the Kennedy Law Firm has requested a refund of $100 because they overpaid the excise tax when a deed was recorded. And for them to get their money back, apparently we have to vote on it. So this was, I don't know if it was her mistake or the law firm's mistake or the Register of Deeds mistake, but apparently they
That was
overpaid
a mistake.
and they want the money back. And I don't know who they were working for. I guess that's not really important. So,
I make a motion that we give her money back.
okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reimburse the Kennedy Law Firm $100 for overpayment of excise taxes. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next is Mr. Mac Williams, here to request that we set public hearings for economic incentives.
Hey, Mac.
Good morning. I hope you guys had a great holiday weekend. I'm here this morning with them to start the process for two economic development projects that are looking to for Alamance County as a location. One is a new company that will be coming from another state, and another one is a expansion of a company that's already here. So I'll just pick the order. And so the first one I want to do, and both of them, the reason for being here today is to ask you to set the date for a public hearing on the incentives for September the 17th. So that's the case for both of them. I don't know if you want me to do these separately, or if you want to just do them as a together,
We need to do them separately.
We got them on the agenda separate.
You got it? Okay, all right. Well, the first one is the new company, a potential new company, and the name of the company is Universal Preservachem. Universal Preservachem.
Can you spell that?
It's UPI for short. It's PRESERVE, I think it's -A and then -chem, CHEM. Universal Preservachem. The second project would be the expansion of a company already here, and this would be a major expansion by Lotus Bakeries, who is already under construction with their facility in Mebane. And this is actually, it's an expansion, but it will be an amendment to the existing agreement that is currently in place. And so both of those items will be coming before you on September 17th, if you set that as to be the date. Both of these projects are in Mebane, in the NCIC industrial park there.
Can you tell us how many employees each project, new employees each project?
Well, again, the Lotus project, the original amendment was 60 new jobs, and that's still the case there. As I understand it, the project here would be an expansion, but not any necessarily new jobs associated with this specific expansion, but the original job count remains as it was. The new company, UPI, I believe is it 39? 39.
Okay, so we would be seeking a motion to set a public hearing for September 17th at 7 p.m. for economic incentives to the company Universal Preservachem.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there?
Can I ask just one question?
Sure.
So it's when I see the term chem in a name, it sounds like a chemical company, and that kind of raises flags from an environmental standpoint. So will we be able to discuss that with?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Get more information about that?
Absolutely, yeah. They distribute a lot of food additives, and they've got a wide variety of things that they bring in and then repackage and ship back out. So, absolutely. We have the same questions, and so.
Okay, good. All right. So we don't want another Gen X issue here in Alamance.
No, so this is, the company officials for both projects will be here on the 17th. We'll be in Mebane on the 10th for their public hearing. So all of this will be news already to a large extent before we get here. That's just the way the calendar worked out on this particular time.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
I'd like to ask one more question. You know, we qualified these deals as to ask whether or not the workers are temporary versus full-time. Do we know the status of this?
No, we'll have that information for you for the
the
next
public
meeting at the public hearing. So we'll be able to tell you everything that we put in the policy. We changed how we do our press release, and that was one particular point we added, so.
That's right. Press release is what, a week out?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, all of this will be public information anyway by virtue of the fact that the Mebane public hearing is going to be on the 10th.
Okay. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, next we'd be seeking
Thank
a motion to set a public hearing for Lotus Bakeries, economic incentives, public hearing on September 17th at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you, Matt. Where'd he go? He's already gone. It's like a bullet. He's gotta go do some economic development really fast. All right, Mr. Gary, next we have a presentation about all the churches of Alamance County. Welcome, Mr. Gary, and we are excited to hear about the things going on at Allied Churches.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, for granting me the opportunity to stand before you today. As the leaders of Alamance County, I thank you all for your service and dedication to the community in which you serve. As the Executive Director of ACAC, I want to use today's presentation as a means of information sharing, possible collaboration, and to begin the conversation regarding the development of strategies to virtually eradicate homelessness in Alamance County. As you may already know, we operate an 82-bed Mercy shelter and a food pantry. Upon admission, a housing plan is developed to assist the individual in resolving and or coming to peace with issues that led to their issue of homelessness. This can include, but not limited to, the dedicated factory worker that lost his or her job after 23 years of service, the devoted spouse that after 15 years, her partner decided to part ways, or the family that have lost everything due to a natural disaster. During the past year, Allied Churches have changed the service delivery model to better meet the community's needs. Allied Churches utilize the process of coordinated entry to refer and to link individuals to various community resources they need to exit the episode of homelessness or to prevent it from happening. Due to partnerships and support from local and surrounding universities such as Elon University, North Carolina Central University, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and North Carolina A&T, we are able to use case managers to help homeless families and individuals that present to the shelter to navigate the system and to exit their episode of homelessness as quickly as possible. A supportive services program is an array of services to prevent and to support those experiencing homelessness. We provide counseling, mediation, case management, and legal aid to those that have prior evictions on their record. Serenity Home. Serenity Home is an extension of the shelter. As we know, children living in the shelter can be traumatic and have long-term effects. So what we have done is that we have actually developed a home to remove the kids from the traumatic experience of the shelter. Community outreach. We meet chronically homeless individuals where they are. Some of our individuals, due to their record and their lifestyle choice, they choose not to come to the shelter sometimes. That doesn't mean they're not human and we still cannot serve them. And Love and Hope, a mobile food pantry program that delivers the equivalent of 7 uncooked meals every other week to homebound, disabled, and elderly community members in Alamance County. As a result of these program changes, this is what Allied Churches have been able to do in the past year. 45 families have been served or housed through ACAC since April of this year. 92 individuals have been discharged to permanent housing. And may I remind you, sustainable housing, they are still housed. 609 individuals have been served through coordinated assessment. 38 clients are currently served through Love and Hope within the past 60 days. And we have actually helped 46 individuals to obtain employment within the past 2 months. How does ACAC maintain its programs? 46% of our annual budget comes from private donations, including individuals, congregational, and businesses. Civic grants, we actually receive grants from HUD to actually rapidly rehouse individuals. Although those grants may total $198,000, only $50,000 can be used for shelter operation funds. Congregational, our large contributors is individual contributions. And if you are supporting Allied Churches, thank you so much. How can the county help? Humbly, ACAC is thankful for the allocated funding through the Alamance County Department of Social Services. And I understand what I'm asking will require further discussion. However, ACAC needs additional support. The City of Burlington have awarded ACAC $65,000 in kind for bathroom renovations and another $12,000 for community development funds. So ACAC is asking the county to help in 3 ways, 1 or 3 ways. Number 1, $50,000 annually to assist in shelter and covering operational costs. If that doesn't work, waive utility costs for the shelter. Or, like the individuals that we serve, we don't want to hand out, we want to hand up. And we want to take control of our destiny. So this is what we're asking. We're asking the county to donate 5 abandoned, foreclosed, livable homes for housing individuals using a shared living model. ACAC would charge no more than 30% of their income. This is based on HUD standards. We will provide supportive wraparound services for a period of 1 to 2 years. We will use the rent for sustainable income for ACAC while resolving a community issue. And while increasing the number, while increasing the number of affordable housing options, we reduce homelessness in Alamance County. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Y'all got questions?
Yeah, I have some questions. Could you explain a little bit more detail? And by the way, thanks for being here and everything you do.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing. Could you explain that coordinated assessment a little further? I'm not sure if I understand how that works. I
Yes,
went to a
sir.
workshop once, but
Yes, sir. So I'll use an example. Let's say that we have a family that presents a pregnant mother, have no income, have no daycare voucher, and she'd like to find a job. This is how it works. Instead of her going to multiple places, she comes to the shelter as a single point of entry. What Jay and Supportive Services would do is that they would actually reach out to social services and say, hey, we have a young lady here, and outline her situation. We would then connect her to social services, working with the social services case manager. We would then link her to daycare. We will also get her on food stamps. We will also just get her the resources that she needs to be successful to exit her episode of homelessness.
now does she have to go to DSS or?
She does not.
DSS worker comes to
The
shelter?
DSS worker can actually come to us.
Right.
Every individual, we use a multidisciplinary housing model to where we look at the barriers and say, okay, what entities do this individual need to help them exit the episode of homelessness? And so that could be DSS, that could be Alamance Community College, that could be legal aid, and so forth.
That's great coordination. And then do we own abandoned homes in the county? And
Well, we foreclose on some, but
No,
we
we don't own them.
don't own them.
We don't own them. Normally, if there's a home involved in a tax foreclosure, there's an estate involved, and sometimes a bank involved. So what we do, we get a judgment from the court for our taxes, and then we put that up for sale on the courthouse steps. But we don't actually own it. Now, we have several homes right now that have enormous IRS liens against them, and no one's bid on those homes. We're trying to work something out with the IRS so we can put them back into the tax base. And we have a lot of interest in that. But the county doesn't own the property. We don't want to own it.
would it be possible to get that home donated? I mean, I know we would lose the tax base, but just, is it possible, instead of selling it, to somehow get it transferred to Allied churches.
Certainly, there's the possibility that somebody will buy it and donate it. That's always a possibility. But the taxes, we can't forgive the taxes. We have to collect the taxes owed.
The purchase price goes to the estate, or is it?
What happens is the taxes, we get paid first. If there's excess, if it gets into an upset bid situation and there's excess funds, that goes to the clerk, and the clerk distributes it to the heirs of the estate. And as far as utility forgiveness, the county
We don't
doesn't
really
provide
have any.
utilities.
Well,
That'd be a city.
one thing that
Function.
I know about, there are a lot of communities where homelessness is really taken on by municipal or county governments. And we're lucky to have Allied churches in this community.
If there are if we've got these homes that have essentially been abandoned, I would think that they would be a blight in that community, and in fact, well, that you don't.
Those homes are generally, we try to get to them first to sell them, but sometimes the city departments tear them
Condemn
down
some.
before we can get to them, and the lot is clear.
Cities will condemn a lot of those homes.
Right. And they'll condemn them and they'll bulldoze them. Although we try to work out arrangements with them so the house is still there, and it's easier to sell a lot with a house on it, even if it's one that needs a lot of repair. But that's the case. We have a lot of abandoned properties that are destroyed, and then we sell them as a vacant lot.
What
We've
about
tried to-
outside of the municipalities? Is there situations where there are country houses being held that?
Most of those properties are undeveloped land, estate property, where the owner has died and the children live outside the state and they don't have no interest in it. And then someone will come in and buy that property at a bid. But there's generally in those cases, no building on it.
Well, maybe we can figure out a way to be innovative. Get some housing to Allied churches. I had another question.
Yes,
Could you
sir.
explain, one of your slides showed, I think it's called the Alamance Housing Coalition.
Yes, sir.
That's a multi-county entity, is it not? Or-
Yes, sir. Mr. Baker, can you explain that?
Yes, sir. I'm actually the chair of the Alamance Housing Committee. What we do is look at the need in Alamance County. What can we do? How do we provide affordable housing? How do we find affordable housing? Or, in this instance, how do we create affordable housing? What we find is that there is a problem with affordable housing in the county. According to HUD standards, we are well below in rent. However, we know that an individual that is working, through studies show that the individual that has a regular 40-hour job needs to work 60 hours a week to maintain a normal lifestyle. So what we're trying to do is partner with Durham. We have partnered with Greensboro. We brought some people in. We've had some conversations about how to do that. Through those studies, we kind of talked with the executive director, and we're here today to say, hey, there are some options. Again, they're maybe a little cumbersome, but there have been some options in some other cities where the county has been able to assist with garnering some homes. And for us to work with the city and county, community development block grants to go ahead and renovate those homes to kind of get them moving to where we can use a community integrated living model, where you have homeless individuals that are staying in homes, and in many communities, individuals don't know that those homes are being run by the homeless community anyway. And that's just because of coordinated entry and those things that we've spoken about.
So I heard in some communities, when apartments are being permitted, that a little negotiation is done to make sure that a complex has so many units that are going to be affordable, meaning that the
correct.
rent's going to be of a certain level,
Yes, sir.
below a certain level.
Yes, sir.
Is that being done here at all, do you know? Because we don't normally permit, that's mostly a municipality.
Well, usually it's in the municipality, but to answer your question, that is not being done. We have some complexes that we met with, as the coalition did, immediately upon them coming into the area. But since those apartment complexes are now up, that there was no follow-through on those units that could be available for, again, that term low income of those individuals that actually need some assistance or break in the rent. So we have reached out to Mebane and Graham in particular because again, that is where we're starting to see a lot of growth, but we haven't yielded any results at this time.
Can you know what the level is that makes it affordable?
So HUD says the level that's affordable for our area, the median rent should be $814. So we know that this area kind of comes under that. However, based on the jobs, the types of jobs that we have to offer in the medium income, then we need to stay around the $650, $725 mark to be affordable for individuals who are working in fast food restaurants and individuals who are working for ABSS and your janitorial services. Anything that we can do to bolster that. So we have the Work First programs. All of those individuals would fall under the poverty level, and what we have right now is just not available for them, which is why your boarding rooms are such a mainstay in this area, which is why hotel stays are skyrocketing in this area, because we can tend to do that weekly versus a monthly rent. So that's kind of the trade-off. And what we're looking at is how to find stable housing, something that's affordable.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thank you for coming.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming, we appreciate it very much. Is Dr. Thorpe here? Next on our agenda is ABSS Performance Contract Resolution.
Good morning, Commissioner Ward. How we doing this morning?
Great.
Good, doing wonderful. I always take a few minutes time to sort of give you an update, because we try to keep everybody updated on what's going on. Summer projects went really well this year. Probably at about 92-93% complete, so we still got a little bit of finishing up. Roofing project, heavy presence at Cummins and Broadview, Baker Roofing. Moving along pretty good. If we can stop these afternoon storms, they're killing us. But, we have no control over that, so we're moving along. One thing I do want to remind folks while I'm here, remember, buses are on the road. We have yellow buses on the road all day long. Used to, you could pretty much count from 7:30 to 8:30 and 2:30 to 4:30. We have yellow buses moving kids, at least 4 or 5 times a day for different programs, like, for the ACC, with CTEC, at Graham High School. So just be cautious, look out. We're hauling the most valuable asset to Alamance County. So I just kind of put that out there as a heads up. I brought probably the smartest group of people I've ever hung around with me to talk about this. We are here today to talk about the resolution. We were here, 4 months ago? 5 months ago? We was here a while back. Talked a lot of details about the resolution performance contracting. I have Mr. Asher Flynn.
How are you?
Kat Stallings is here from the Energy Office, and our superintendent, Dr. Bruce Benson, is here to help answer any questions we have. We have a PowerPoint we can run through quickly if you'd like. Just sort of the baseline is it turned out to be about an $8 million project, all paid upon savings. We can put LED lights in all our buildings. We chose not to do Pleasant Grove because we have extensive renovations going on there. And any areas in the high schools that will be destroyed, or if something changes in the bond, we will not do it at the bond. We will not talk about that side. But if it doesn't, we do have the ability to go ahead and fix those areas as well. Water conservation is involved in this performance contracting, as well as we will be able to replace 5 chillers that have been identified as on their last days of working, which, as we all know, our mechanical systems are getting old and getting in age, and we get the most bang for our bucks through the chillers at this point. But I will turn it over to Mr. Flynn and let him run through the PowerPoint, please.
Dr. Thorpe really does a better job of presenting that than I do. So let me run through this real quick. Just want to go over the project timeline. This is a presentation from the school board meeting, so it's a little bit out of date already. We are delivering our investment grade audit this week, and with the resolution passed by the county commissioners that will allow us to submit to LGC for approval and a contract signing in December. First of all, this is every school building on the portfolio for Alamance Burlington County Schools. This green line here on the graph is the national median for energy usage, and the red line is the average EUI for the Alamance Burlington County Schools. What I want to say here is that Dr. Thorpe and his team are doing an incredibly good job of saving you guys as much energy and as much utility expenditure in these schools already. That is why we are performing a lighting project primarily. We were able to get a dimmable LED retrofit fixture for the classrooms, which will improve the learning environment, all very good things, as well as the water conservation and the chiller replacement. And there's actually 6 chillers at these schools listed here: AO Elementary, EM Holt, South Graham, Western Middle, and Western High. We have performed a pilot installation of those fixtures here at East Lawn. You can see pictures on your screen. And we are looking at saving $677,000 in energy savings to fund this 15-year project at a cost of $7.8 million. I'd like to open it up for any questions you have. I'll try to stay brief today. I know you're busy.
I had one question. I go to church with a gentleman that works at Hunt Electric, and he said y'all didn't bother to give them a shot at the bid, and I'm just curious why.
So I've actually spoken to a member from Hunt Electric. They were not part of the upfront costing. At this point in time, they've neglected to bid. So right now, the ball's in their court.
Oh, okay.
We are looking at using Atlas, which is a local manufacturer
Right.
for the exterior lighting, and that shouldn't be a problem. So
Right.
we'll get a local manufacturer at least into this project.
So make a comment, because I've heard the more extensive presentation at the school board work session and
Yes.
then at the school board meeting, and Amy as well. So my understanding of this whole performance contracting project is that because we're pretty energy efficient already, the scope of the project has come down quite a bit.
Yes.
The initial estimates were, the savings were going to be much greater than what we're going to be doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. We initially anticipated a much larger project, including controls, air handling unit replacement, chiller replacement, and boiler replacement at every school. Because they're doing such a good job of saving energy, we unfortunately can't save them that much more. So it is a limited scope to lighting, water conservation, and the 6 chillers that the lighting would fund.
So
That's
we're going
what
to save, we're going to spend $8 million, the school system's going to spend $8 million, borrow the money to do that, and the savings that's generated from that investment will pay the debt service associated with that expense.
That's
that
correct.
capital cost.
With this project, Trane has a guarantee. So if we do not meet that savings number year over year, Trane will pay the difference. So you're guaranteed that you have the funds to pay off that loan.
And then another important point, I think, is that this $7.9 million of capital investment to achieve those savings is an investment that we don't have to worry about through some other means, such as with the bonds, so that if the bonds pass, we can use the proceeds from those bonds to do other things that's been
absolutely
proposed to us, and like building the new high school and doing all the other renovations of the other high schools and expansions and a couple of elementary schools.
Absolutely.
I'd like to ask a question. It's probably been brought forth in the past initially, or even when I wasn't here, but do we have central thermostat control?
We have controls throughout our buildings. We control it from our maintenance shop. That's one reason we have such a good energy rating. We ask that, people need air on, we don't mind turning it on. If they need heat on, we don't mind leaving it on, but we pretty much turn it on like at 7 in the morning and turn it off around 4:30 in the afternoon. So if something's going on in the school till 5:30, 6 o'clock, the temperatures stay, very doable. So yes, we do control it. One of the things we run into an issue with, we control with 3 or 4 different controls throughout the years. And one of our goals is to try to start narrowing it down into where you have one type of control instead of so many different.
Who has to call in a request to leave the air on or turn the heat up or what?
It has to be the principal or the assistant principal in charge. No one else can do that. They have to call it in, and we ask them to call it in and send an email to make sure we get it. And then we have schedules. We just go to the schedules and make those adjustments on the schedules. And normally our folks are really good about only asking for heat or air if in case of a large meeting or a large class meeting, those type things. We don't get requests. I've got 5 people wanting to work over for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you know. So they're really good about making sure the requests are legitimate.
Todd, why is your line on maintenance department so high on that graph?
That was asked at the school board meeting too.
So,
well, if you let me,
What are y'all doing, sitting over at 60 degrees?
Eddie knows what's going on.
No.
It's a shop.
So-
It's a shop. We're very inefficient.
And really, the reason is not that. It's the fact that it runs year round.
Right.
They're actually always working in that building.
Well,
so
yeah, the welders,
Yeah.
It's like I said,
Yeah.
Eddie knows, he's just making
Yeah.
fun of it, but you run all that stuff, it's gonna run your utility costs way up, and non-insulated buildings, trying to give them a little air and a little heat,
Maybe we
costs
need
just
some
well too.
insulation in
Yes.
them, right?
right.
So this resolution is just essentially saying we're going to continue the funding of utilities at current levels, and then you take the difference between what we fund and what you actually incur in cost and to pay for the debt service.
Exactly.
It's a no-brainer.
Pretty straightforward to me.
Okay,
I'd like to have Dr. Benson come forward, if you will. I don't know that you've been here. If you have, I
I
was
don't
gone
think
maybe.
he didn't
I
make
think
the
we've
meeting
met,
minutes.
all of you,
Yeah.
we've all met you, but I'd like to have you come before our group and say hello.
Good morning.
I'll say hello to you.
Well, good morning. Good morning. And we've had a great start to school. I have to say, compared to some other systems that I've been in, this has been a really smooth opening week this past week. It is, schools are never quite the same without our young people being in those spaces, and we were excited to have everybody back. Yes, we've got a handful of year-round schools, but it was great to have everybody back in our traditional schedule last week.
How many more, and I mean this constructively, I'm at a school in Greensboro where they've got the biggest freshman class in its history come in, and their freshman class is bigger than the whole high school I went to in South Carolina. But how has our attendance?
So there's some variance in that right now, and we're monitoring that. We looked at it every day during the course of the week last week. We have some young people that, for whatever reason, don't always show up until after Labor Day. So we'll be counting again today.
Pulling tobacco.
And have some pretty firm numbers by the end of the week. But I think what folks will see, and we'll be reporting this out to the Board of Education, is that we've got some areas where we are down a little bit, and then we've got some other areas where we're up, and we're going to have to do a little bit of balancing in order to self-correct in terms of staffing.
So I do believe the trend is for growth.
Yes, sir.
Long term.
It's got to be.
Yeah. They gotta go somewhere. Yeah. But nice meeting.
and nice to see you this
Good to
morning.
see you.
We look forward to working together.
Thank you.
We would be seeking a motion approving the resolution that was included in the agenda packet.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second on that. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you as well, we always appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Albright, Woody Drive property.
Good morning. You may remember from the last meeting, received an offer for the purchase of Woody Drive, and instructed me to advertise that offer, which I did. In the opening this morning at 8:30, there were no other bids, although we did have an inquiry from a corporation interested in it, but they didn't come through with their bid. So the Burtons are here. They deposited $31,850 after our meeting on March 23rd. The ad was run in the newspaper, and the opening was 8:30 this morning. No other bids were tendered, and so it's up to the board now to decide whether to proceed with the offer or to reject the offer.
How much was the offer for, did you say?
$637,000.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
And that's including the billboard.
Yes, that's
Yes.
everything. That is the two
And I
parcels.
did speak with one of the councilmen, and Graham, he said, yeah, y'all please do that, and thank y'all for putting it back on the tax roll. I'll second your motion, Bill.
I think that we would want to include in the motion a caveat that any money that is, results from it that be put in the fund that we have for county facilities.
Well, that would be what we did with the property when we sold the Peak building. We did the swap. We put the proceeds in our county facility fund. We're working through our facility plan now. I would ask the board consider doing that with these proceeds.
I'll include that in my motion.
Would you also authorize the county manager to sign the deed?
So moved.
And we anticipate it closing between now and October 4th.
So all that's in your motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just adding on to it. I'm seconding that.
All right, is there any more discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All
Good.
opposed?
Thank you.
Good luck with your project here.
All right, the next item on our agenda is to consider the pipeline resolution. This morning, I asked Mr. Albright to prepare a draft to be printed out where it has the whereas clauses numbered so that we can refer to the clauses going through. I believe that the ultimate resolution, if any is approved, would have those numbers deleted from it, but for purposes of discussion, I thought it would be useful to have that. And I think it would be appropriate to go through, since we've struggled with this issue and with the draft resolutions, I think it would be appropriate to go through clause by clause and discuss what we agree with and what we don't agree with as a board. So, clause number 1.
May I ask a question, please?
Of course.
Is this, which resolution is this?
Thank you. We're looking at what says draft 82918 at the top of it.
the
There
one
was
that's on our
one,
desk.
hopefully at your,
You had it on your.
That's the one, Clyde.
I realize that, but what about the one that I read last night at 9:30 at night?
The one that I drafted.
Bob made a
right, we have a bird
proposal
draft
to-
dated September 3rd, 2018. I would suggest that if there, as we go through the draft resolution prepared by the county attorney, if there are things from the bird draft that you think should be included or incorporated.
Have we got a
perhaps-
copy of Bob's proposed draft too?
I have copies here if you'd like.
That's complete. Yeah.
It's,
While he's passing that out, if I may, Madam Chair, I spoke with the Franklin County, Virginia attorney, Jim Gwynn. As Mr. Boswell suggested in our last meeting, was Franklin had a lot of activity, including a person that was up in a tree. They had to get a federal court order to remove him from the tree. And they did a resolution similar to, I incorporated a lot of his in that draft. But his take on it is this: he said that the federal government has given the pipeline company the power of eminent domain. So their lobby is so powerful in Congress, they have that power. He also said that the main things to consider, which is in the draft resolution, is protection of domestic water sources, wells and springs. I think that's in Commissioner Byrd's resolution as well. And in fact, the commission staff has already taken notice of these things, including threatened and endangered species, residential developments and property values, public safety, environmental justice, operational noise from compressor stations, and alternatives, and their potential impacts on a range of resources and issues. But I did want to let the board know that I had talked to Franklin County. They are, I don't know if you're familiar with the area south of Salem, Virginia, Boone's Mill, very steep terrain. And he said every time it rained, they had a deluge of mud because they're digging a trench and putting a pipe in the ground. So they had the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality engaged and involved. I was trying to get in touch with our Department of Environmental Quality, the issue being, do they have enough people in Raleigh
to monitor the construction of a 20-mile, or, 20-mile stretch of pipeline. And I haven't got an answer from that yet. But with that, having said that,
Madam Chair, could I just ask one thing before we go through each clause? And,
Sure.
And I'm not opposed to doing that at all. It's a good idea. The main objection that I have to the overall, what Clyde had presented, was the conclusion in that it doesn't say at the end that we oppose the pipeline.
we can certainly add that.
And so some of these, when we review these whereas clauses, let's review them with that end goal, because some of them are saying, well, if the pipeline is built, make sure you do your job. Essentially what it's
Those are
saying. But
givens there.
Well, it's in the pre-filing stage now, Commissioner Byrd, and they won't actually file their application until December. So all these are good points. But, if I may return so I can make notes, be a lot easier. Thank you.
Yes, and I would say that as we go through this, if you see, when we get to the end of these whereases, if we want to incorporate something that Mr. Byrd has drafted, then we can do that. Hopefully this won't take long. Hopefully we'll agree in principle with most of these clauses, but if there is a problem, then this, I think, is the best way to root it out and deal with it. So number one, I think that we all agree with probably that. We balance respect for rural history with thoughtful growth and development. Number two, we're a political subdivision. I had a question or a problem with saying that we found facts, following facts found by the board, because we haven't taken, this is not a public hearing, we haven't taken any testimony, nobody was sworn in, and we've had a lot of opinions presented, but I don't know about facts.
Well, the packet that I sent earlier had 47 pages of attachments with it. They all came from conclusions drawn by public bodies, such as the Utilities Commission, the American Energy Institute, and those type of things.
Sure,
You can
I
certainly
understand that,
you can
but
certainly change that.
Some of it is facts, but some of it in these may be opinions, so.
Can we just say concerns?
May I suggest take notice of the following?
Yes, take notice is awesome. All right. Number three, I especially like this clause because we're striking a balance between reliable sources of energy with the needs of our citizens. I thought that is good because that goes to the policy trade-offs that we have to make as a governing body. Number four, does anybody have an issue with number four? Number five, and number six.
Can we slow down just a little bit?
Sure, I'm sorry.
I'm not a speed reader.
I'm sorry, I knew I was going to do this, and so I sat down and read it and made my notes ahead of time. So I had the benefit of a jump out of the gate.
Okay, five is, I repeated five in mine, so.
Now, number six, we're talking about coal accounts for nearly 70% of carbon emissions and how bad and nasty were carbon emissions, but then coal contributed to 50% of the country's energy generation. I would suggest that we strike that as irrelevant to the issue of the pipeline as it relates to Alamance County.
I agree.
I agree.
And then number seven,
My issue with that is that we're talking about something that was determined back in 2013, 5 years ago. And it doesn't sound like to me, and I didn't really read the proceedings from when that happened, that other renewable sources were taken into consideration and other options to that impact capacity vis-a-vis the projected need, like expanding existing pipelines and setting up storage units and then doing other renewable energy sources and reversing the flow and Transco. I didn't understand that one completely, but I'm not sure if all those were taken into consideration.
so you want to strike number seven?
Yes, and so what I suggested in mine, let me see if I can find the right paragraph. So what I said in mine, whereas the Alamance County Board of Commissioners has not been presented compelling evidence that an additional pipeline is needed to meet future energy needs of Alamance County and the surrounding area, that could not be met with alternative renewable forms of energy such as solar and wind installations.
Yeah, I resisted that phrasing, for one reason is, when you talk about compelling evidence, a compelling burden of proof or a compelling standard is a term of art in law that has a particular meaning to it, especially it's used in, standards of constitutional review. Am I right?
You're correct.
And I think that to think that we can meet the needs of, say, if we had a pharmaceutical corporation that was coming and thinking about locating here, or if we had, we have the Randolph County super site. If we had a auto parts manufacturer that was going to be located here, I think it strains credulity to think that we could power those kind of manufacturing enterprises off of solar and wind.
That's ridiculous.
Well, you might be right about that, but the concept is that we're talking about taking people's property through eminent domain, and there seems like before we do that, we need to make sure that there's, I call it compelling evidence that there's that need. So maybe there's another term to.
Well, we don't have
substitute for
we don't have
compelling.
a choice to make that decision. That has nothing to do with what we're doing here today. The federal government has already made that decision, and all we can do is, and I'm in favor of the resolution against the pipeline, but all that ridiculous, crazy stuff that only the liberals agree with, Bob, is just, this is a fantasy world, and that's part of it.
It's happening before our eyes, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, let me say, one thing, I'm surprised it's coming back up again in point number 7. There was a point made that docket, well, whatever it is, I can't even say it, but that study said we needed more gas.
It said we needed another pipeline.
Okay, but you admitted after I asked you that
Right.
that was pre-Duke Piedmont Gas Atlantic line.
They,
The Atlantic pipe.
Right.
yeah, that was 2013, and their pipeline, they didn't start talking about that till 2014 and
Right.
15.
So what I'm saying is that the semantics of this is we're trying to use evidence on another case that has no bearing with me as to the need for MVP. In other words, that study said what it said, and then Atlantic gets approved,
That
which
was
is run
supposed-
clear across the
prior
whole state.
to,
of North-
yeah, the
clear
Atlantic
across the whole
pipeline.
state of North Carolina. And, I had to ask the question to get that.
I haven't read the docket and the conclusions they reached. The Transco's been in the ground since 1953. It's the
Right.
only pipeline that serves North Carolina for a long, long time. And they were looking at putting a second one in for years. And with the coal generation going away and natural gas generation being stepped up, they said an alternative pipeline would be desirable because of the fact that if a 68-year-old pipeline has to be shut
Yeah,
down.
but don't you see my point that?
Yeah, I see your point.
Okay,
Exactly.
because the evidence that you're trying to cite there is for another case, and that has
Prior.
been remedied.
It's a prior.
That line is
Well-
coming down, and it's going all the way down to the South Carolina border. And it's coming from the same area, the original gas from up West Virginia, whatever.
Right.
But to cite that as an example of why MVP is needed, I think is just,
Yeah, I think that needs to
it's
be
not proper.
scratched
So,
out of
I think we
this.
should scratch it, because it really doesn't help make the case for the
Right.
conclusion of opposing the pipeline.
Right, okay, so I think we're united in saying let's strike number 7. And my preference would be that we not substitute anything about solar and wind power and just leave that
Right,
issue
right.
alone.
But
I agree.
we could alter that clause in my draft and take out the term solar and wind and use something more generic, other forms of energy. I mean, there's more than solar and wind in terms of
Nuclear,
providing, meeting capacity,
very so.
or meeting needs and increasing capacity.
One of the things that I'm keeping in the back of my mind is if I were a corporation that was thinking about building a factory or a manufacturing thing in Alamance County, and I looked at this, how would I think that the Alamance County government was friendly to their business friendly and friendly to their needs? And I think that I certainly lack the expertise to make a judgment about alternative and renewable forms of energy. And I don't think that as a county government that we have that.
Yeah, I don't think the technology's available yet. It's coming, but it's not now.
Well, I think though, as an elected body, we have a duty to look out after our environment and keep up with the technology.
How about if we hold on to that, and then
Yeah.
when we get through with,
You
the
told me
draft?
leaving the 7 on there?
No,
Oh,
I think we're gonna strike number
Right.
7.
7 is gone.
And let's come back to, this clause right here when we finish with the rest of Mr. Albright's draft.
Okay.
And revisit that. Maybe we'll take care of that in a different way.
You talking about
Somewhere
number
else.
8?
I'm talking about on Bob's,
Oh, the one Bob.
Bob's, this one right here, the fourth one.
Okay, where it ends.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to this one.
Okay.
Right. So then, we're on number 8. Does anybody have an issue with number 8?
No, that's a fact.
Is that necessary to even say?
Well, it goes
Yes.
with number 23. If you look down to, we have other language later
Okay.
about the Department of Environmental Quality and asking them to do stuff. So he's laying that out there, is identifying them as the state agency with jurisdiction over that. That's a good question. All right.
Is this available that we could put a PowerPoint up as we discuss it, because it never got in our agenda package last week? Could we do that as we talk about it, just so that people can see what the heck we're talking about?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Because a lot of people do like to know what's going on.
I'll have it,
How about the other
we have an
resolution?
email to
Brian, how about the other resolution? Can it be-
Bob.
Both resolutions, yes.
How about if we have a recess while we get all that worked
I
out?
think that would be.
Yeah,
All right.
good idea.
Viewing the resolution which was drafted by Mr. Albright regarding the proposed Mountain Valley Pipeline. And the clause which we stopped at, we were at the one that is numbered number 9. Whereas the state of North Carolina, through its state budget and management office, is projected a population increase by nearly 2 million people in the next 15 years. Is that up there? Okay, thank you. Put my glasses on. So I would prefer that we strike that for condensing the resolution. So that would be my preference.
I agree.
Thoughts? Y'all cool with
Strike
striking number
number
9?
9.
All right, number 10. The U.S. Energy Administration has concluded in its North Carolina profile that electric power generation is driving demand for increased natural gas consumption. Approximately 1/4 of all North Carolina households use natural gas. I would suggest we strike that.
Agreed.
I agree.
All right, number 11, whereas in Chapter 40A, North Carolina law provides a system for determining fair and just compensation due to all affected property owners. That is a true statement of fact. It does provide a system. Whether the compensation is fair and just depends on which chair you're sitting in.
Well, it doesn't lend to if we agree with the conclusion that we're going to oppose the pipeline, that doesn't lend to supporting that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're not, comments from the audience are not part of the discussion. The resolution is voted on by the Board of Commissioners, and we appreciate you being here and your attention and everything, but in order for us to get through this expeditiously especially, it's important that we be able to focus and to focus. So, so you'd rather, Mr. Byrd, you'd rather get rid of number 11?
Yes.
Agreed.
I would agree. Does anybody wants to keep it? All right, so we'll strike number 11. Number 12, MVP Southgate was provided the opportunity to address the board It'd be Board of Commissioners, not boards, so it should be singular, not plural. That's no problem, and all, to me anyway. Number 13, all owners of property within the proposed boundary area were provided the opportunity to address the board. That's true. I don't have a problem with either of those. Does anybody have a question or concern about 12 or 13? Number 14, we have received the concerns of property owners along the proposed route of the pipeline, including concerns regarding public safety, emergency responses to potential leaks, taxation, among other things, and the most appropriate location for a pipeline. I thought that was a good one.
I'm good.
Number 14. Number 15, whereas 20 miles would traverse erodible soils and without proper engineering and construction could have severe negative consequences. I like that one particularly, number 15.
I'm good.
I like that.
Number 16, Alamance County has an interest in the protection of the county's natural and cultural resources. We have an interest in how the project may affect its citizens in compliance with the North Carolina Division of Water Quality's regulatory obligations. The outdoor beauty and unspoiled nature of the Haw River and its tributaries is integral to the county's ability to attract tourism and recreation. I like that one.
That's good.
I like it.
Number 17, many citizens rely on untreated groundwater from wells or springs for their domestic water supplies. Being one of those Alamance County citizens, I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one.
Number 18, we're aware that sedimentation caused by accelerated erosion from land disturbing activities in West Virginia and Virginia has occurred. There's potential to cause severe erosion in the county's riverfront terrain. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what Mr. Albright was saying when we commenced this, that his discussions with the Franklin County, Virginia attorney. So we keep number 18.
I'm good.
Good.
Number 19, numerous concerns have been raised to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission about the project. Alamance County citizens have also been attending local meetings.
I'm all right with that one.
I'm okay with 19. Number 20 is long. The Board of Commissioners at their meeting directed the county attorney to send official correspondence to FERC on their behalf, requesting that FERC delay the release of the environmental impact statement with notice of areas of particular concern, the need for a containment plan, and other things. Alamance County feels it is vital for FERC to have all the necessary information. I like number 20.
Yes.
Number 21, Alamance County is required by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality to implement a comprehensive stormwater management and erosion and sediment control program because of the Jordan Lake rules. That's one of my,
Which we just voted on last meeting.
yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
21. Number 22, the North Carolina DEQ has the authority to require the submission of site-specific erosion and sediment control plans. I thought this related to one of the conclusions that Mr. Albright included, number 6, so I liked having that one in there. Anybody has a concern? I know y'all
Well,
speak up.
It's just that, again, that one doesn't necessarily support our conclusion. I guess it's maybe
Yeah,
a statement.
but if our conclusion does no good, then we want these rules in place as they need to be.
Well, okay, all right.
Right, we can
That's a good
conclude
point.
more than one thing, so
Yeah.
we can oppose it, and then we can also further ask that the number 6 of the conclusions, ask the DEQ require erosion and sediment control.
So is the board's wish to delete 22?
No,
No, I think that's fine. That's my opinion.
I think that we're keeping number 22, if somebody
Thank you.
hollers. Number 23, we believe access to required sediment control plans and stormwater management plans is an important part of keeping citizens informed. This one kind of related back to the clause number 8 that we were talking about earlier, that the DEQ is the lead stewardship agency for protecting the environment.
Yeah.
No, we're right with that.
Number 23. Number 24, Alamance County has concerns about the ability of its volunteer fire departments to respond safely to any potential pipeline fire.
Okay.
And number 25, Alamance County recognizes the landowners' hopes for the future use of their property by their children. I would ask that if we could substitute heirs for children. Future use of their property by their heirs.
That's a good addition. I'm in favor of that.
All right. So then, that takes care of all the whereases that Mr. Albright drafted. Now, if we want to go and look at Mr. Byrd's draft, is there something in here that, as a body, we want to include, which has not been included?
So what do you think of the clause, MVP is highly incentivized to extend its pipeline into North Carolina due to the guaranteed predetermined financial return on its financial investment to build a pipeline regardless of the true need for the pipeline? And we talked about that at the last
We
meeting.
did.
Tim, you even brought that
Yeah,
up.
that was even in the Roanoke Times.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Clyde?
I tried to find it again, I couldn't find it.
It's,
I'm sorry.
the article. Or the-
Said that with what they were being approved for in Virginia was going to paraphrase it, aid in their effort to compete with a Louisiana scenario that was going to yield overseas gas sales. And now, whether that's accurate or not.
Is that where this goes?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be my hesitation, is whether that's accurate or not. You know,
Yeah,
having
yeah, you don't
personal
know, yeah.
experience with things that are printed in the newspaper, not necessarily being
Oh,
accurate.
come on, you know.
What do you say?
I know you haven't had
We
that
won't
happen
go
to you,
there,
Mr.
right?
Sexton.
Never.
But, you know, if the majority of the board wants to include that paragraph 3, then I would prefer to keep it out, because I feel like that's outside of
Somewhat
our,
speculative.
speculative.
Well, I would debate this point. When it's in the first sentence of their mantra, if that's the right word, that their main goal is, in the first sentence, is profit. You know, you have to, I come down on that. I'm sorry. I don't believe Duke Power would have ever written that.
No.
Well,
Well,
that's a great point.
I mean, they are, I don't know why it's set up this way, but they do get a guaranteed return on their investment. It's
Sure.
not like
That's a
pure
fact.
capitalism.
That is a fact.
Yeah,
yes.
and if
There's
solar
good PR
companies,
too, and there's bad PR. That certainly wasn't good PR.
if solar companies had the same kind of incentives, we'd be seeing a lot more solar installations. So, I mean, I think we could maybe say, instead of is highly incentivized, we could say is allegedly highly incentivized, if you want to soften it just a little bit, but.
Or stands to reason.
Yeah, yeah.
If the pleasure of the board is to stick with the wording is highly incentivized, that's not a hill I'm gonna die on.
I think we need to include that because that's a fact that,
Should we add that as number 26?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then, if we can just go down mine one at a time, I think we can dispense with a lot of these because they're already addressed.
All right, so we had said the number 4, I'd said we were gonna come back to it, so now let's do that.
There's the fourth whereas on my draft you're
Yes.
talking about, yes.
Whereas the Alamance County Board of Commissioners has not been presented with compelling evidence that an additional pipeline is needed to meet future energy needs of Alamance County and the surrounding area that could not be met with alternative renewable forms of energy such as solar and wind installations. And, you know, I'll repeat what I said before, that I think that two things. One, that it's out of our depth to talk about what's needed to meet future energy needs, that that's something that's not in our area of expertise or knowledge. And two, that solar and wind installations or other types of alternative renewable forms of energy in 2018, in the foreseeable future, are not adequate to meet the needs of manufacturing.
So the way I have that written, it kind of doesn't go far enough. And so maybe if we added at the end, and other, it cannot be met with alternative renewable forms of energy such as solar, and that's an example, those are just examples, such as solar and wind installations, and other strategies that would increase energy capacity. Because if you've read that one report, I mean, it wasn't just adding renewable sources of energy, it was expanding existing pipelines, and it was adding storage areas, and it was...
Right, and we already know that 2013 report didn't really help us out in
Yeah,
thinking about
so if you
that.
kind of put that in the context of, there are lots of other strategies that kind of deal with addressing increasing capacity for energy beyond just renewable sources.
Could you just maybe strike
Well,
the,
name one. I mean, tell me, how can you run a manufacturing plant off of something other than natural gas or coal or nuclear powered electricity or something like that?
Well, the report that I read gave examples of increasing the capacity of existing gas lines.
infrastructure?
That's what we're talking about. That's
Well,
what the pipeline is.
Well, we're not talking about adding another pipeline.
It's using what's already in the ground
It's
now.
using what's already in the ground and having storage facilities to, you know, build up a reservoir perhaps that can be tapped into. I mean, there's other strategies to increase capacity other than just adding another pipeline, even without adding renewables.
Well, you can qualify your statement clearly by just saying in part.
In part.
Yeah, okay.
So, that's
No,
what
that's
I-
good, that's good suggestion. To be met with in part.
Because that leaves the door open for other stuff.
And I would just suggest we add in other strategies that increase capacity, energy capacity.
I just resist I resist the compelling evidence section. I don't think that there's a burden of proof or a standard of compelling evidence. I don't think that that's our purview. I don't think that we have the,
How about convincing evidence?
It's not compelling, but.
we haven't been presented with any evidence that an additional pipeline is needed because we haven't had those kind of people coming in here, to my recollection. We haven't been talking about the future energy needs of Alamance County particularly. I think we can accomplish what we want to with the draft resolution and oppose the pipeline without including anything about alternate energy sources.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm okay with that too.
As long as we oppose.
Yeah, just make sure it's clear where we stand when it's all done.
And that would be my preference in major part because in opposing the pipeline, I do not want Alamance County to be hostile to business.
I don't know
Well, I
how we're
don't think it's
hostile
being
to
hostile to
business.
business at all.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of businesses are being built these days, big factories with solar panels on their roofs because it's cost effective for them to do that. And
Is
so
that
that's
fully doing all their energy needs with solar panels, or is that just in part?
Well, it's helping to relieve the burden on Duke Energy or the power companies that need more natural gas to produce electricity.
Who, by the way, use a lot more nuclear.
I mean,
than
my
they do
solar panels on our
natural
house, I'm
gas.
selling some of that electricity back to Duke at certain hours of the day when the sun's shining strong and I'm not using it all.
Well, what are we deciding? I think we should leave out bird draft number 4 because we have enough already in the Mr. Albright's draft resolution to support our conclusions that I think we all want to draw.
I think somewhere in here, as we get into the now therefore, I like the way Bob had his worded, that we are against this and we're opposed to it. I think we need some clarity in where we really are.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sure.
Well, let's leave the number 4 then. And number 5, I think, is already taken care of in the revised Clyde draft.
Yes.
And I think, did we talk about decreasing property values in the
I
Clyde draft?
think it's covered kind of
We
in
covered that in.
taking land away from
Yes.
individuals.
Number 7 is covered.
I think 7 is covered.
8 is covered. The safety concerns.
Okay.
I think number 9 is covered in the beginning when the draft talks about, in number 3, we talk about the strategic plan with smart growth and development pillar and all of that.
All right. So now we get to the actual resolution.
Right.
The conclusion.
One thing that I had that I would like to discuss with the board is adding a whereas clause that the county lacks the personnel and expertise to evaluate the competing claims, and that we're limited in our ability to act as a fact finder on these issues. Also, I really, really appreciated Mr. Rogers coming in today, and I believe that he is gone. But I was wondering if the board would consider adding a whereas clause that that the proposed path of the pipeline would adversely affect African American church,
Cemeteries.
which it would potentially disrupt its graveyard.
They say African American church of historical value.
Yeah, could you draft something that includes what Mr. Rogers said, that that would hinder where they can build in the future if they want to expand their church, that the proposed pipeline may run to and through their graveyard? Something like that.
Okay. Yes, I can do that. That'll be number 28. Now, 27, you talked about lacking expertise to monitor construction.
Or to evaluate the competing claims presented to the board. I don't know if y'all want to include anything about that or not. I can withdraw that since
Yes, look.
I fussed so much about Mr. Bird's number 4. We'll just, I'll withdraw that suggestion.
Is that your
So,
quid pro quo?
yeah, sure.
Compromise?
So trade off on that. Take no problem with that. All right, so that's all the whereas clauses that we have to consider. Is there anything else anybody wants to say about
I'm good with that.
whereas?
No more whereas.
No whereas. Whereas. Be careful how we say that. Whereas.
Did you want to replace Mr. Bird's resolved clause and put it in your resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
The first one.
Right.
Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Alamance County, in consideration, or however you should phrase it for a resolution.
Okay.
I'm sorry, say it again?
So,
Bob's.
are you looking at my resolution?
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
put
I'm
it
looking
door
at
now,
Bob's
therefore.
resolution. Now therefore be it hereby resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Alamance County, in consideration of the concerns related above,
Or set forth above.
Set
That's
forth
number
above.
4.
Okay.
It's the end of the whereas.
Well, okay.
The first now therefore.
Number, okay.
okay? And then I would resist,
Now, forgive me, which one are we talking about?
We're
Bob's.
talking about Mr. Bird's whereas
We're
clause,
substituting.
now therefore resolved.
be it
It's on
hereby
page 2.
resolved.
Okay.
That
Now,
now.
the next to last sentence is recorded as being opposed. I hadn't heard that word come out yet.
But yeah, that's my question. Do you want to substitute that for
Yes.
For the whole sentence.
the whole?
Just take
the whole
that
paragraph?
phrase.
That
from Bob's,
paragraph.
put it
That
in
whole
your
paragraph.
Copy and paste.
Should be number 1 of the, your resolution, Mr. Albright.
Mhm.
Okay, so then okay, and I resist the be it further resolved that the Board of Commissioners reserves the right to revisit its opposition to the pipeline, because the comment period is over on September 10th. I mean, for us to say that has no,
Yeah.
That is just for the scoping, meetings with the landowners. We could still go back and produce another resolution if the board wishes.
okay.
I guess the reason I put that in there was kind of to show, well, I mean, we could be presented with a situation, I think it'd be highly unlikely. But I guess I want to say, I'm trying to send a message perhaps to businesses that we're not totally.
Against
we're
revisiting.
not, yeah, we'll
should this be
revisit if
needed.
something comes up.
All right, I guess the
But
part
it's not
that's
necessary.
sticking with me is the reserves the right to revisit its opposition. Is,
I mean, we can take that
Which
out.
mean
I'm
we
fine with
may
taking it out.
not be opposed should something come up, yeah.
And I guess we have that right anyways without stating it.
that's true.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
So
not say
take
that.
that out, okay.
All right, so then let's go to Mr. Albright's resolutions, resolvings, the things he resolves. So we've changed the, now therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Alamance County, in consideration of the concerns shared above.
Now, that just got replaced, didn't it?
Yeah,
by-
that's
by
what I'm
mine?
thinking, I'm going over that.
She's
So
reading yours right there.
I'm kind of putting the two of them together, so
Okay.
Mr. Albright's gonna put those two together.
Mhm.
All right, so then do we wanna still include number one, Alamance County resolves that any pipeline project approved by the feds be located as far away from the Haw River as possible? Well, we're saying we oppose it, so shouldn't we take that out?
I mean, that's probably true for just about all of these.
Yeah.
I
So
thought,
I think these would be
I
resolutions
think
to
we can
pass if,
simplify it and take from that Bob's part down.
okay, let's take out number one. Let's take out number two.
You talking about Albright's number one or?
Albright's
or-
number
Yeah.
one.
Okay, so take that out.
Those 1 and 2.
Right,
And then we're gonna do 3 is not a bad statement, I don't think.
okay. Mr. Boswell likes number three, so y'all wanna keep number three?
Mm-hmm.
And number four,
so like 4 and 1 and 2, I mean, those, to me, those are items to put forth in a future resolution if FERC continues on in issuing the permits for the project,
sure.
in spite of our opposition.
Yeah, I think we could just simplify the rest of them, take those last 3 that Bob has and go with it.
Take the last three that Bob had.
Yeah, the last 3, from the now therefore, if we just go
Oh, yeah, we already did
that, and be it further resolved that we reserve the right to revisit that.
Oh, we took that one out.
You wanna take that out?
Yeah, we're gonna take that out.
And then just drop to the last one, and
Okay, and then
we
transmit.
direct the county attorney to tell FERC our decision. Cut through a lot of that other stuff. I mean, those are gonna be given, so just not stop them.
Yeah, so
Everything you stated there is a given.
don't delete those other ones off your computer, we'll use them in the future maybe.
I don't delete public records.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. All right, so,
So what is your desire after 1 and 2? You want to just go to Mr. Bird's?
Just go to be,
and be it further resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Alamance County, North Carolina hereby directs the county attorney to transmit this resolution to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
All right.
with those amendments, I guess we're open for a motion on it.
I believe we are.
I will make a motion that we proceed forward with this and let it be known that we are not in support of, but in opposition to MVP coming through Alamance County.
Please don't do that.
I second the motion.
All right, y'all have been pretty well behaved, folks.
Freedom.
All right, We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I would like to ask now, can this be drafted and gotten to the feds within a time frame that, I think, what's the deadline?
Can be done this afternoon, and I've got their email address. But this pre-filing continues until December of this
The
year.
deadline for this particular, for the scoping is
Comments.
September
For
10th.
scoping for landowners is the 10th of.
And this is what we're really talking about.
But
is
we're
the
finished,
landowners
we've
of
got it
Alamance
now,
County.
so there's no reason not to send it now.
All right,
Thank you.
before we vote, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the public for its participation in this discussion and this debate. This has been kind of, I know, real heartfelt for you all, and I hope that as things unfold from here, that you get the results that are the things that will be the best for your families and for your future, okay?
Is this something that we should have sent to other counties that's involved in the
I'm
pipeline?
sure once Clyde does this, that they will call him to ask for it.
I'm already very popular, unfortunately.
It'll be in the paper, so.
All right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a brief recess because I'm sure that some of y'all are going to want to go to work. And then we will resume work on our agenda. Next on our agenda is Mr. Baker, the Director of Parks and Rec, with a position for the Textile Heritage Museum.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm before you today to address a bit of a technicality. As you guys remember, in the budget, you allocated funds to support the Textile Heritage Museum in Glencoe. After discussing that with the Knolls and the Board of Directors at the museum, the decision was that those funds would be best used to hire someone to keep the place open, to help preserve some of the knowledge that the Knolls have generated over the years. But the budget did not technically give permission to hire someone, so I have to come back and ask again. I'm not asking for any new funds. It's funds that's already been allocated. That's just the way we want to spend it.
Well, they do a good job out there, I know that.
What they
They
do.
do, and
They're so great.
actually, when we passed that, I was voting for it with the assumption that we would hire
Right.
somebody, so I'm okay with proceeding that along that way.
Gonna make that a motion?
I'll make that a
Will the person be
motion.
full-time or part-time?
Full-time. Yeah, it's a full-time position. And I think that's the main limitation to the museum right now. It's a great place. The Knolls have done a fantastic job making that a place you want to go see. It's just not open that much.
A lot of
because
history in that building. I'll
If it's
tell you.
open, it's because Jerry Knoll was unlocking the door and standing in there. And,
Yeah.
that limits what we can
You
do.
know, when I toured that, the thought that came to my mind, there is so much crammed into that museum that if you expanded it, I mean, you could have a huge tourist attraction
really
and a
could.
nice
Well,
Well,
water
you know,
facility,
and it
bring a
is
lot
somewhat already. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
a
I'll
lot of
second that
people do
motion,
that.
Bob.
Yeah.
Make sure the person, in my opinion, I've been out there, and it is nice. The Knolls obviously can't stay there forever.
Right.
And,
Yeah, they're
But-
about 85 years old.
yeah, they're great people. And good chicken salad sandwiches, too. But,
You get a chicken salad sandwich.
yeah, I got one.
Yeah, you went the wrong day.
I guess I did.
But
Right?
I'll assume that this person would go out and speak to civic clubs and do public appearances, not just sit there all day and, you know.
It's not just an attendant job.
Right.
Yeah, I think part of it is to
A promotion.
move the museum forward, including creating a plan and raising some funds for the museum and doing a
Now,
lot
is that
more.
person gonna answer to you?
Yes,
Okay, good,
yes.
good.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. All right, next on our agenda is an update from Stacy Saunders. I wanted to ask, gentlemen, if you all, considering there's no action required on this item, if you all wanted to, say, delay this until the next meeting to get this, to ask Ms. Saunders to come back again the next meeting, or if y'all want to go ahead and proceed and have
How
it
long
done.
would,
Oh.
I mean,
About 10 minutes.
oh, shoot, go on.
Um,
Yeah,
I'd hear it.
I didn't think it'd take long. She's good at what she does.
She's good.
Well, I actually have a staff person who's gonna
Okay.
show you all the SOTCH, but it's just the highlights of the SOTCH. We're not gonna go through the whole document.
All right,
If you want to delay.
Great. No, if that's the pleasure of the board,
10
let's
minutes.
proceed.
Okay.
Kill us.
I just wanted to ask.
So just to set the stage a little bit, that the State of the County Health Report is that report we do in between the years of the big community health assessment, which we're tasked with doing every 3 years now. And our community partners involved in that are us, the hospital, Cone Health ARMC, United Way, Elon University, Impact Alamance, and a lot of other folks, Healthy Alamance, and co-coordination. And so what we're going to do today is just give you the highlights of that report for 2017. And I'm going to introduce Arlinda Ellison, our health education supervisor, to go through that highlight for you. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, where's the advancer?
Right here.
Power.
Here we go.
Is that her?
Nice report.
Oh, it might be the other one. I think so. Is there another right there? Nope.
Good?
Yeah, that's it.
Here we go.
There he goes.
Great. Okay, so we first just want to start with some demographic statistics. As you can see, population makeup here in the county, mostly white, and then African American at about 20%, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Native American, and American Hawaiian. The statistics that might be a little difficult to read on the side basically have the median household income at that time being at $43,209 per capita income at $23,989. What is most of note, in my opinion, is the poverty level. Overall poverty level between 2012 and 2016 was at 18.5%. Considering our population at that time was about a little over 155,000, that's about 29,000 people. And then children living in poverty, those are children 18 and under, is at 27.5%. And so, which is about 8,000. So if you put that into perspective, you're looking at close to the population of the town of Elon, just to put that into perspective. So those are the statistics for that. Wanted to make note, during the time of working on the State of the County Health Report, there was the implementation of this new regional data hub. It was established in 2017, and it has information regarding Alamance and Guilford counties, basically the areas that are covered by Cone Health. This is a public database that anyone can go on. It's called Piedmont Health Counts. It's targets for preventing disease and promoted health. You can access community health status and build agenda for community health improvement. So you're able to go on to it, put in any combination that you please in order to find out certain types of data. So I encourage each to go on to that and learn more. And this is where some of our data will be coming from. In looking at first, access to care. So our 3 priorities from the community health assessment in 2015 was access to care, education, and the economy. So I'll go through each. First, access to care, we wanted to cover the Affordable Care Act. From 2015 to 2016, our rate of uninsured in the county decreased from 14% to 12%. And a part of that decrease was helped with our Elon Alamance Health Partners being trained as certified application counselors. And they assisted residents with being able to access the marketplace. They didn't do anything with signing them up. They just showed them how to access the marketplace.
Remaining with Access to Care is our Minority Diabetes Prevention Program, which is an awareness program used for screenings, prevention, and self-management of diabetes. During the time since it started, we have screened 355 persons, had 110 participants, 23 lifestyle coaches, 12 regional classes, 11 screening events, and 1 large regional forum. And this is a regional event with other counties within Region 5. So it includes Alamance County, in addition to Guilford, Durham, Caswell, Person, Rockingham, I may be forgetting the county, and Chatham. Also with Access to Care is our Healthy Beginnings program. One big piece of Healthy Beginnings is decreasing the infant mortality rate. Alamance County has seen a 33% reduction in overall infant mortality rate in the past 15 years. We've seen a 50% reduction in the minority infant mortality rate in the last 15 years. And this is contributed in part to evidence-based interventions that we have implemented, such as family planning, centering pregnancy, our home visiting programs, which Healthy Beginnings is a home visiting program, our safe sleep interventions, and our breastfeeding programs. And so as you can see in the graphics with our Healthy Beginnings program, what our goal is, of course, is to decrease disparities between infant mortality among whites and other children of color. 90% of the participants in Healthy Beginnings program attended all visits. 95% postpartum care visits were attended. Everyone initiated breastfeeding, which is great, and 55% were able to maintain breastfeeding for 6 months or longer. In moving on to education, we want to acknowledge the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and also Reach Out and Read. Both of these programs have been successful. Programs that were overseen by the Alamance Partnership for Children and funded by Impact Alamance. And they receive referrals from many agencies and medical offices, including Alamance County Health Department. So the numbers that you're seeing, this is inclusive of all of Alamance County, not specifically just the numbers from the health department. Along with that is the Triple P, which is the Positive Parenting Program. Through a grant from Impact Alamance, we've been able to implement this program into our daycare centers, which is where most children under 5 spend a lot of their time. And so this is another regional effort with a focus between Durham County and Alamance County. And through a separate funding stream, our Department of Social Services is also implementing Triple P into the foster care program. And so you can see our purpose is to assist child care providers that are spending all their time with these kids and how to address their behavioral needs and make sure they're kindergarten ready. The children are kindergarten ready. Moving on to economy, we want to look at the Alamance Wellness Collaborative. This collaborative has 4 main goals to improve their health outcomes. It's hard to see it through this blue, but this SOX report is available on our website. The long-term goal is also to include improving the quality of life and increase economic opportunity. That would include improving built environments, potentially make us more attractive site for employers. Built environments allow additional routes for transportation and access to jobs and services. They also provide quality of life and recreation opportunities for employees and their families. All of these build on the county's strategic plan of being the desired place to live and work. And so you can see many of the achievements and accomplishments that the Wellness Collaborative
has been able to have from their 3-year strategic plan, walking trails, playgrounds, multi-purpose sport course at Alamance Community College. Is a long list of things. So these are all accomplishments through the Wellness Collaborative. Also remaining with the economy is the North Park Farmers Market. This is a partnership of the City of Burleson to build a permanent shelter to house a farmers market. If you haven't been to it, it's a great shelter. Rain or shine, you're able to go out there and get fruits and vegetables. Healthy Alamance and Elon University partnering at the farmers market to improve health and to develop community leadership. Excuse me. And so some of their successes have been, they're getting 2 times more vendor participation, foot traffic has tripled, and they're seeing a 20% increase in sales. So the farmers market is doing very well. And the health department is a supporter of that. Emerging issues, which is another part that we have to submit to the state. And so one of the emerging issues that came up, of course, is combating opioid abuse. And this data is 2017 data, as you can see. But we want to start with the leadership forum that we had in December of 2017. There are about 16 presenters that discussed the opioid epidemic and its impact on our county. And then we reconvened this past May of this year to create a strategic direction and an action plan. And so we're moving forward with that. We hope you're going to be a part of that. But again, looking at 2017, there were about 19 opioid deaths, 369 doses of naloxone administered, and that was in 4 years of data that we're counting. Currently, we have 7 law enforcement agencies that carry naloxone, and we have 4 medication drop boxes within the county. So I would say that we're doing a lot to try to deter opioid abuse and address it in our county with the steps that we've taken. Another emerging issue is Medicaid transformation, and this is a hot topic that we're hearing a lot about. In 2017, when this report was established, we were in the early stages of it. So at that time, we were just making sure that it was known that public health was an integral part of Medicaid transformation and in the progress of Medicaid moving forward. Public health fills the gaps identified in community health needs assessments. They provide care, upstream planning, and response. And that is through communicable disease, family planning, nutrition counseling, care management, immunizations, and many other things. And so this is a growing topic. We're learning more about it. So if you have more questions on that, we can address that at the completion of the report. A couple of new initiatives that we have going on at the health department. One is the Teen Friendly Clinic, and we're trying to integrate a teen-friendly approach into all of our clinical care services. And this was made possible through a $100,000 grant from Impact Alamance. And we're working with Shift NC, which is a state organization, to help to implement that. Also, trauma-informed care. We've heard a lot about that. Especially those of you who attended the meeting last week through United Way and talking about trauma and resilience. The health department chose to address that by looking at our workplace, how we serve our customers, how we serve the clients in the health department. And some of the changes we made was changing our waiting rooms, and so we've repositioned our chairs. We have new furniture in the waiting room. That is important because if your trauma was because someone came up from behind you, you probably don't want to sit in a chair where someone's walking behind you. And so we made some of those changes in our waiting room. In addition to paint color, wall art, we made many changes with that. Smoke-free initiatives, wanted to touch on that.
Burlington Housing Authority went totally smoke-free in 2017. And also the city of Graham now prohibits smoking on all city grounds and property. So smoke-free initiative is moving forward. And if we go back to those statistics that I addressed in the very beginning, many that I will address in this next slide, sorry. I didn't move fast enough. So we have our leading causes of death here in our county. Of the 4 leading causes of death, they share key contributing factors such as tobacco use and weight or obesity. According to the CDC, tobacco use is the leading preventable cause of death, estimated to be responsible for about 1 in every 5 deaths. About 66% of adults in our region are overweight or obese. And obese costs $147 billion nationwide in health-related costs each year. So you can see the leading causes and how those compare to North Carolina statistics in this slide. Finally, these are Health Department annual performance numbers. This is something that we include with our report to the state, just to give a snapshot of what all of our areas of the Health Department are doing. And so you can see from 2016 to 2017, the numbers of immunizations, clients we've seen, home visits we've had, the numbers that have been a part of each of our clinics, including environmental health and health education, how much grant funding we received in the course of the year. Many of those numbers went up, a few of them went down, but this is just to give you a snapshot of the performance, and we can talk more about that also. Oh, thank you.
Did you see the report on Channel 8 where it said that a mother was being charged with murder or something, where her baby died as a result of baby feeding, to put it nicely, where she had drugs in her? Did you see that?
I have not seen that.
Yeah, it's on Channel 8. Wow. And
In the last few days?
Yeah.
So I can okay.
Well, last
I've
week.
not.
I think it's, how do you pronounce it? Meth what?
Methamphetamine.
Yeah, and that she had that and the baby evidently ingested it or whatever, died, whatever, and died. And they charged her with murder, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to ask a question, and I think you probably sense this might be coming, because I'm curious about it.
I do try to anticipate your questions.
I'm sorry?
I do try to anticipate your questions.
I don't know if that's good or bad. But and I've seen reports on this lately, and I've always had an issue with it, and I've said point blank that we're compromising our health standards with our immigration policies, or lack of policies, or enforcement. Clearly, that we're compromising our health standards. And here is a good article just recently came out, and it's talking about the returning diseases, and it talks about that these were near eradication, but they're making a comeback, and they list the top 6. And they've got tuberculosis, measles, whooping cough, mumps, scarlet fever, bubonic plague. So my question is what proactive, because we can't change federal policy on what's causing some of this, in my opinion, but what can we do, what are we doing locally to make a dent in those surges or small surges, if you feel like there's a surge at all? What are we doing to try to not allow that to happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so locally, I will say you live in a county that has really high immunization compliance rates. When we get audited from the Division of Public Health, both through our child health clinic and the other participating clinics that, pediatric clinics that have to report to what's called NCEDS, which is the database that the state keeps, we actually have really high compliance rates. So if I'm not mistaken, we're somewhere between 85 and 90%. So we're in a county where folks really take that seriously, and there's a lot of compliance to the well child visits and getting those immunizations done on time. So that's one thing that we work really hard with our community partners, be it other pediatric offices or even child care centers. We're charged at the health department to make sure that if a child is in a child care center, they must also be compliant with the state laws with immunizations. And we follow up on that, and we have a child health nurse consultant that for child care centers that are not compliant goes out there and does technical assistance and helps them get compliant. So that's what we're doing on our part. We try really hard to make sure that we have immunizations available when folks need them through open access appointments, even at community fairs, and those sort of things.
How efficient are the schools with their population, as far as you know?
They do really well. I mean, we get reports. So we just started school, and about, I think you have 30 days or so, 30 days to be compliant with your immunizations. If you're not, then you get a letter, and we also get notified, and folks will come right to the health department or to their pediatric office to get compliant with their immunizations. We typically see after about 30 days, our immunization clinic appointments go up a little bit as people get their letters and then want to be compliant.
What do you do if they don't take heed to your advice?
Then they have to be removed from school.
Okay, that's what I
think
wanted to
I
hear.
think that's the state law.
Yeah.
I can't
Good.
state it verbatim, but then if they're out of compliance, then they're not meeting the state regulations and requirements. So we work with families to get them appointments when we can.
Were you with us when Chatham had Chatham County had the statewide medical alert on rubella?
No, sir, I don't think so.
You remember it?
It's been several years.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was coming as a result of the workers in Chatham County, basically in the chicken plants, and they had sent in health officials from all over the state, and it was statewide medical alert on rubella. That's German measles, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't recall that one. Might have been before my time here.
It happened.
Yeah. Well, and occasionally we do see outbreaks related to vaccine preventable diseases. And, you know, we also have to contend with that more and more folks are exercising their individual rights as adults too, not to comply, and helping them understand the science as to why we recommend that. That prior to vaccines, child fatality rates were quite high. And that there's a clear correlation that once vaccines were introduced, that our children lived through their infancy and through their childhood.
Sure.
And that we're starting to see some of those reemerge. I hope that has answered some of your question.
yeah.
I know you'll call me if you have others.
If I read something else, I'll call you.
Other questions about the SOTG?
Good report.
That was good, very good.
Well, I want to thank our community partners that help us with that as well, that the SOTG is not just the health department's work, it's the whole community's work around health, and I want to thank Arlinda for her time today presenting that to you.
It's amazing how much impact Alamance gives to help out the wellness of our county.
Yeah.
And the North Park Farmers Market's today from 3 to 6.
That's right. Thank you for putting a plug in today from 3 to 6.
I was
Please
there
visit.
for its opening for the season last week. Very impressed.
Well, for its special award.
Oh, for the
Yeah, they
special
got it
award.
last week.
That's right.
Stephen's been on for a while.
That's right.
I enjoy that
Very
very
good.
much.
I think I'm next up, so
Yeah.
Yes, you
I'm
are. We
sticking
have a
around.
budget amendment.
March of Dimes.
Okay, so what you have before you is a budget amendment. We have received a foundation grant from the March of Dimes in the amount of $22,856. And to implement, it's essentially two-phase grant looking at really preterm birth rates. And so each one of the phases of the grant has to do with preterm birth rate. And here in Alamance County, our current preterm birth rate is about 10.6%, so that's almost 11%. The state rate is 9%. So this is of great concern and priority for the health department, particularly as many of the women we see may not be medically high risk, but socially they could be high risk. And that one of the things that we're tackling is the preterm birth rates. So the first piece of this is implementation of a best practice called One Key Question, which is really sort of common sense, but isn't always the standard practice of care. And so about 50% of all pregnancies are unintended. That doesn't mean they're not wanted, it just wasn't intended. And so the unintended pregnancies are also then more associated with poor birth outcomes, one being preterm birth. And so one key question, just at its base, sort of is asking a woman each time she's in your office, are you planning to get pregnant in this year? Are you planning to get pregnant soon? And so it's based on the patient's choices. An algorithm is used based on what the patient sort of directs. And the biggest piece of the grant is then to have that integrated into our electronic medical record so that it's something that becomes standard of care instead of relying on just the memory of a provider or someone else in our clinic, that it becomes part of that electronic medical record. And then our hope is that with that we would also partner with some of our other practices in our community, have them trained as well in that standard of care. The second piece of it has to do with 17-hydroxyprogesterone. We call it 17P because it's just a really long word. And this is a weekly injection given between 16 and 24 weeks of gestation, and it's been shown to decrease repeat preterm deliveries by 33%. So that's pretty effective. What we found in the health department, though, is that we have low uptake of that 17P medication. That of the 56 who were qualified in 2017, only 13 chose to use 17P, even though they had a previous preterm delivery or birth. So that's about 23% of those eligible really actually taking advantage of that medication. And anecdotally, we know from our providers and nurses that that most of these births are between 33 and 36 weeks, and mothers then report that I had a short stay in the NICU, so it doesn't seem like a big deal, or I just have small babies. And so that's what we know kind of anecdotally, but we don't have qualitative data true around that. And so what we know is that any birth before 37 weeks can have complications, both at delivery and then with health outcomes of that baby and the mother. Just to name a few, that the brain is not fully developed until about 37 weeks. The NICU cost with that, the baby has temperature regulation problems and breathing problems sometimes. And so the other part of the grant is to actually do some qualitative methods and do focus groups with our clients about what is it really keeping you from wanting to take advantage of this medicine, and then putting in best practices and standards of care based on the information we get and implementing that into our clinic. That's the grant. Questions?
And there's no county funds needed with
This is a foundation grant, no match is needed.
What I was referring to, here's the headline, it's dated mid-July the 20th or something like this. A Philadelphia area mom accused of killing her infant through drugs in her feeding habits, or the process. And said she was a drug addict, and it lists the drugs that they said she had in her and so forth, but it's out of Philadelphia.
Thank you. I will check that out.
All right, so we'd be seeking a motion to approve the budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore? We have a budget amendment from Soil and Water Conservation.
Brad dressed up for this one.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleased to be here before you today, asking for this budget amendment. If you remember, I came before you about 2 years ago with something that looked very similar. We were, the county was selected to continue a grant that we had in the past. About 5 counties were selected, and just here before you today to tell you a little bit about that. So for about 2 years, we did use a very similar grant. We have planted the cover crops and so forth. Not sure if you got some of the photos that I sent, but those are actual Alamance County photos.
Those are impressive.
Had a field day and everything. And basically, this is just a 1-year extension of that grant. The total you can see is $2,750. No matches required. It's a reimbursement type grant. You see how it's broken down. Do you have any questions?
I would make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right, Ms. Evans? Capital Improvement Plan Amendment.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. What you'll find before you is when we went through the budget process, the Commissioners allocated $250,000 for the capital improvement plan projects at that time. Since the approval, the jail is needing 3 air handler units to be replaced, which will take priority over 2 projects that the board approved at that time, which was the county office building elevator project and the CSI roof project. What we are asking is for no additional funds at this time, but just monies to be taken from those 2 projects and be able to purchase those air handlers for $108,923.
What is CSI?
CSI is the crime scene investigation
That's the little
building.
brick building.
Oh, yeah.
The building needs a roof replacement. We've been patching it until we get through with our facility plan to see what's the future for that building.
Right.
But it will make it a little bit longer, but the jail does need the air handlers pretty badly.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the transfer request. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. County Manager, do you have a report?
I have 2 brief things for the board. One, I want to bring you up to speed on our change that we're implementing in our county employee merit raise program. You know, this year for county employees, we instituted a merit raise program that was targeting all full-time employees. Worked with department heads and with our human resources department. We've identified 21 part-time staff across county government that also receive annual evaluations, and these folks are in 4 different departments. I've come to the conclusion that the best thing to do is to incorporate them into the merit raise program also, since they are evaluated on an annual basis. I'm estimating that if each one of those employees were to receive the maximum 2% raise, that would equate to $4,022. The departments will be asked to find this money in their budget, so we don't need to any new allocation from the commissioners. But I do need to tell you about it because the budget ordinance was approved with language in the ordinance that says the merit program was for full-time employees. So we are going to implement this for these specific part-time folks. It's also given us a chance to look at how we classify part-time employees, and we'll be talking with our departments about that next budget year. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer it, but I wanted to make sure you were aware. Second item I have to report is I'm very happy to report that we have selected a new planning director for Alamance County Planning Department. Ms. Tanya Caudle will start with the County Planning Department on September the 13th. Tanya is currently the Director of Planning in Rockingham County. She lives here in Alamance County. We're very excited to have somebody that lives here in the county to work in the County Planning Department. She'll be here soon. We'll bring her before you and get a chance to introduce her to you. But I'm very excited about it. I know Sherry is. Sherry's that's one of the departments she works with directly, so she is very happy. Thank you very much, Sherry, for all you've done, helping with planning, helping it move along. So anyway, she'll be coming before you soon, but we're glad to have Tanya on board. So.
Very good.
Do you have a start date for her?
September 13th.
Thank you. All right, does anybody have any comments? Nope. All right.
Comment it out.
In that case, we'll be adjourned.
Good job.
Thank you for watching the Alamance County Commissioners meeting. Meetings of the Alamance County Board of Commissioners occur on the first and third Monday of every month in the Commissioners' Chambers at the County Office Building at 124 West Elm Street in Graham. Typically, the first meeting of the month occurs at 9 a.m. and the second meeting occurs at 7 p.m. Changes to the meeting schedule will be posted on the county website at www.alamance-nc.com. The video of this meeting is broadcast on LocalGov TV. Please go to www.localgovtvnc.com for more information about this schedule and to see more videos produced by your local governments. You can also access this meeting through our website at www.alamance-nc.com or at our YouTube channel. Technical questions regarding this meeting's broadcast or production may be sent to our county webmaster at webmaster@alamance-nc.com. This address is for technical questions only. Comments and questions about the content of the meeting may be made to the commissioners themselves. You can find their contact information at the Alamance County website at www.alamance-nc.com. There, you can click on the link that says County Commissioners to learn more about our commissioners, read minutes and agendas of commissioner meetings, and find other information about the County Commissioners. You can also send mail correspondence to County Commissioners, 124 West Elm Street, Graham, North Carolina, 27253. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Alamance County Commissioners meeting. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments.